He's known for keeping order in the House of Commons, no easy feat. But what does the Speaker think about the current culture in Westminster? We take a tour around Sir Lindsay Hoyle's parliamentary home. Good evening. Over the past few months, British politics has been tested like never before. Scandals, infighting, resignations, resulting in a revolving door of prime ministers at number 10. All this with a backdrop of a cost of living crisis, which sees families struggling to pay energy and food bills, and now the steepest interest rate rise in over 30 years. This turmoil has caused anger at the heart of Westminster, where decision makers debate the issues that affect all of us in the Houses of Parliament. The person in charge of keeping it all in check is Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House of Commons. Let's see him in action.
I invite Sir Lindsay Hoyle to take the chair of the House.
I stand firm that I hope this House will be once a great respected House, not just in here, but across the world.
I love the eyeball to eyeball. I love the excitement of the chamber. I love the power of the chamber.
Order! Order! I say to the honourable gentleman, I will not tolerate such behaviour. If you want to go out now, but if you stand again, I will order you out.
Sit down a minute. This House will not be taken for granted. It is not right for everybody to be briefed. It's not more important to go on the news in the morning. It's more important to come here.
Why the honourable gentleman will not tell...
Prime Minister, sit down. Prime Minister, I'm not going to be challenged. You may be the Prime Minister of this country, but in this House, I'm in charge, and we're going to carry on. End of that.
Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House of Commons, Mr. Speaker, thank you for joining us on the show. We're going to talk to you about politics, Parliament, your political career. But before we do that, you're going to give me the political version of Look Through the Keyhole and show me your pad, the sort of palatial surroundings of Mr. Speaker. But I think we've got a Guy Fawkes theme, haven't we, to start off with?
We have indeed. I think nothing more
appropriate.
appropriate. Let's start off. Look at the key here.
Yeah.
This is the key that Guy Fawkes had to try and ensure he could get his gunpowder plot underway. You know, and this is the history that you've got within Parliament. And, you know, everything you look, there's always a piece of history somewhere.
Speakers do have nice accommodation, don't they? You have the Speaker's house. Can you tell us what this place is, what this part of the Palace of Westminster is?
This is Speaker's house, the Speaker's office. We're walking through now into the state apartments, the Speaker's rooms for entertainment that we use for different events. And I think that's what's important. It's about opening this up.
Yeah.
And what we've tried to is ensure, you know, we've got the public coming in as well.
You know, at night, when Parliament's all gone packed up, do you just come in here and have a disco? I mean, do you come and hang out in here?
No, I'm usually still in the office. Or I've gone to the tea room for a cup of tea or something. But yeah, look,
but you,
it's very lucky.
You sort of
Last night we were hosting
receptions.
the 40th anniversary for Harriet Harman. 40 years of being MP, the longest-serving female MP.
The Mother of the House.
Mother of the House.
Can you show me this? Because I think we're going to jump on this, aren't we? we are so not doing that, I know. Can you explain to our viewers, why is there a bed in here? What is this room?
This is a royal bed. This is the bed and the royal stateroom.
Right,
so,
okay.
On the night of the coronation, you want somewhere where the king can get to the Abbey without interruption. And the nearest place to sleep is the state bedroom. And the state bed is here in case King Charles, on his coronation, on the night before, it's made available to him.
Do you predict that King Charles will come and stay here the night before next year?
I remind him I've got his bed ready.
What did he say?
Oh, interesting, I think was the word. And of course, as he says, there are many quirks in history, and no more so than there's having the state bed. Always ready.
And Mr Speaker, if I had come down from Mars and I had no idea what the Speaker was or what you did, how would you explain your job to me?
I think the easiest way, umpire, a referee, somebody who holds the House in good order. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? What do I do? So basically, we've got to ensure the business goes through. I want to ensure there's good scrutiny from the opposition, and I want to make sure the government legislation is brought to the floor of the House. So I'm the referee, I'm the umpire about trying to ensure the business goes through, but also it's scrutinised.
And you have a responsibility for the Palace of Westminster as well, do you?
I do indeed. The House of Commons is my domain, and it's a domain that's not only is it a privilege to be the Speaker, but actually I have a huge responsibility. One is security. We've seen the tragic attacks on Joe Cox and David Amis, who lost their lives serving as a member of Parliament. The attack on Parliament, the terrorist attack, we've been through that. And those are the worst moments. Those are the moments that keep me awake, because I have that responsibility. And we've got to make sure we do everything we can to protect democracy and protect members of Parliament.
And just to finish off on Guy Fawkes, and obviously it's the anniversary, we've got bonfire night. Guy Fawkes did not succeed, obviously, in the gunpowder plot. 36 barrels of explosives were put in the cellar, weren't they, under the House of Lords?
Yes.
He did not succeed.
He did not succeed. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? That we've got to make sure democracy thrives and survives. It's people who don't believe in our values always worry me. Because in the end, there is an answer. If you disagree with Parliament or you disagree with me, stand. Stand against us. Use the ballot box. Please, don't try and intimidate. Don't try and pursue us through evil means, whether that's through death or whatever it is, because all it will do will unite Parliament. Parliament's at its best when it's being attacked. Brings us together, and it will never succeed. Democracy will always succeed.
I want to start off, before we talk about Parliament and politics and what's been going on lately, about your family, because your family is steeped in politics. Your dad, Doug, was a Member of Parliament, a Labour MP for what is now largely the Pendle constituency in Lancashire. He became an MP in 1974. You were just 17 years old. Do you remember your first visit here with him?
I do, and he used to come down quite a lot. It's interesting, isn't it? And during that time, to be an MP, Labour government, and it was strange, wasn't it? Because it was always on the edge, and you're heading towards how long could the government last, and that was always going to be the difficult thing. And in the end, it was brought down. It's amazing when you look back. 1979, suddenly you got a job, then you're out of a job.
Yeah.
So I've seen what it's like. When you're employed, you give everything up to become an MP, and then you're rejected. That's the nature of democracy. But it comes as a shock, and it was obviously a shock to the family that suddenly he was no longer a member of Parliament, and he was then looking for a job. And then he came back, didn't he?
He
was very lucky. He came back in the very famous by-election. Of course, the STB had been formed, Roy Jenkins, the big beasts of the Labour Party were now in their own party. And the first challenge for them was Warrington. And the Warrington by-election came up. And he managed to win it.
So you sort of talk about your dad tried to become an MP for 10 years, became an MP, then lost his seat a few months later, then got a seat back. But it didn't put you off. You didn't think, God, it must have been, as a teenage, his son, it must have been actually quite a stressful time for your family, but it didn't put you off.
Well, I suppose like everything, you go through stages, don't you? I'll never forget the 1964 election when he was fighting Clitheroe, this was the run-out.
Yeah.
Here am I, 1963, very cold winter, going putting leaflets through doors, as this youngster, very enthusiastic, realising, and then you think, why was I doing that? Enthusiasm of a young child is very easy, isn't it? Running up to the doors, putting leaflets through. That was my early introduction. You go through life. And I think what brings you back round to politics, and you're absolutely right, you see what happens to a family. And it's about where are you at that moment.
Yeah.
I felt, to be a councillor on Chorley was absolutely everything I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Youngest ever councillor elected to Chorley. I was on there. I loved every minute of it. I was the mayor of the town. I'd been deputy leader. I'd held nearly every position on the council. And people said to me, Lindsay, the leader, a friend of mine, said, Luke, why don't you think about Chorley? Why can't we have a Labour MP that is from Chorley? Yeah. And in the end, they persuaded me, and I managed to get selected. And, of course, the rest became history in 1997, Labour landslide, and suddenly I'm the new MP for Chorley. And then when we came to the Deputy Speaker, because suddenly they're going to have elected Deputy Speakers. And I thought, do I stay on the Select Committee? What do I do? Labour's now in opposition. And Nigel Evans said to me, why don't we both run to become Deputy Speakers going to be elected? Because nobody's going to tap either of us on the shoulder and say, by the way, do you want this job? Because that's how it used to be. But with election, it's slightly different. I know how to win elections. Marginal seats. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to have a go at this. So we both decided to stand and they got elected.
Just before I move on, just in terms of when you're the Speaker, you have to be apolitical. You obviously steeped in Labour politics. You know, you were doing it from the age of 5. Is that hard? Is that hard to do, or do you just leave it at the door when you take the seat?
I always believe in this, that I've been the mayor, where you had to be neutral as well at Chorley. So, of course, you don't give up your membership of the party. But, of course, in 2010, I became Deputy Speaker, so you had to show neutrality within the church, even though I'm a Labour MP. But I always say this, when you go for Speaker, you know what the rules are. If you can't accept the rules,
then
don't do it.
Fair play.
And that's the point that I always take on board. If you're going to do it, accept the rules, get on with it, and that's what I did.
But when you go back to Chorley, is it hard because people will want you to advocate on the cost of living? I mean, number one, are your constituents finding it hard at the moment? And number two, is it hard not to advocate for them here?
I'm always there for my constituents. Because I always say this, I'm the Chorley MP first, the Speaker second. So where am I going? I'll be off up that road tomorrow, I'll be on the train, I'll get to Chorley, I'll be doing the usual, any meetings that need to be in, I'll be doing my surgery, I'll be meeting my constituents, taking up the issues, listening to the issues. The same on Saturday, I'll have different events in the morning. Of course, I'll go out selling poppies. You know, that matters to me. I'm part of that community. I'm in the heart of the community. I'm so visible and accessible.
And are you seeing, Sir Lindsay, are you seeing the hardship? Is it getting worse for people in your constituency at the moment?
It's getting hard for everybody.
Yeah.
And let's look at what's going to happen. Interest rates, mortgages, those are the big issues. Whether people can afford the heating, food. You know, Chorley's a wealthy constituency. It's very wealthy. And yet we have food banks. And that tells you it's about the community. And we mustn't forget about that part of the community. You know, we've got this huge rural countryside around me. But in the heart of that, I've got the same problems in the city. And what I've got is an ability to try and make a real difference. Because when I want to see somebody, I may not ask it on the floor of the House. But if I want to see a Prime Minister comes to see me. If I want to see a Secretary of State, they come to see me. So the issues of Chorley go direct to a Secretary of State or to a Prime Minister. So being an advocate on behalf of my constituents, I've got the access I would never have if I wasn't the Speaker.
So you sort of have behind-the-scenes influence?
Very much. Big influence.
But you just can't publicly speak?
I don't publicly. Some say I do say a little bit too much from the chair.
But have you raised issues of cost of living then with Liz Truss / Boris Johnson / Rishi Sunak?
What I would say is we're going through the motions now. I'm trying to keep up with the changes. I think that's my
I think we all are.
jobs, you know, because you have conversations with ministers, and I've been dealing with some, you know, about disability access at the railway station. So I'm now on my third minister in the space of weeks, and that's always a problem. And of course, the health service really matters, the A&E at Chorley, and of course, the new Secretary of State. That's now being booked in. All the meetings I need. The business secretary I'll be having a meeting with, because these are the areas that matter. Businesses, how are they going to continue? You know, heavy users of energy. So taking up, because they're employers, they're big employers.
So as a local MP, and take your speaker hat off now if you can, but as a local MP, the turmoil in Parliament and the turmoil in Westminster has been a problem for constituents and getting things done. That's fair to say, is it?
Well, I think all MPs, quite rightly, represent their constituents. If constituents have got the issues, I'm always going to raise those issues. It's how we raise them. And what I do.
And the churn
at the moment is, like everything, we should now hopefully have a settled period again. Nobody ever expected, and I talk to politicians of all political parties, journalists, everybody, and I say one thing: have you ever seen anything like this, and did you expect it? And we all have one thing in common: we've never seen anything like it before, and nobody expected the churn that we've seen.
Did it make you feel angry?
I'm not a person who gets angry very easily. what I would say is I get upset because in the end it's about the people of this country. You know, you've got a government that's been elected. They also need to get on, and quite rightly, deliver on behalf of all our constituents. Because in the end, they're the people that are going to suffer. And we've got to look after them. And now stability is what we need. There isn't going to be an election, unless somebody tells me something different with a majority like that. They are the elected government. And as much as people say we demand a general election, I can't see that happening just yet. But in the meantime, we've got to recognise people out there are struggling. And that's for the government to deliver on. And I genuinely believe that the people of this country need good representation, I think, and hope that we're going into a very calm period.
Let's get on to Parliament a bit and some of what's been going on a bit, if we may. I mean, you just said that kind of what's been happening in recent months, you felt upset. You felt upset because of the way in which it was impacting on real life for your constituents, right, when government isn't functioning. And your role is to represent Parliament and MPs in some way beyond this place. That's kind of how I see part of what you do. And some of the goings-on just didn't look good, did they? And before we go in, we might even go to that, but just in terms of what's happened recently, just in terms of Matt Hancock, the former Health Secretary, he's not here in Parliament working on behalf of his constituents. He's out in the jungle in Australia and I'm on a celeb. What did you think of that?
Well, it's not what I think, it's what his constituents think, because they're the people that matter. We're elected to represent those people. They voted for him, and they will have the answer. Yeah. They have the answer for politicians. If you don't like it, they'll get rid of us. And that's where he will be answerable. He will come back, and he will have to answer to his constituents. He has made that decision.
Not for 2 years.
Well, who knows? If you
Unless
know
they
we don't know when the election will be. Like everything, it could be any during that period. And of course, his own party have decided to discipline as well. So what I would say is, I look from here and say his constituents will make their voice heard, they will make their feelings known. And in the end, you've got to put your constituents
first. What do you
first.
think about it, though? Come on.
Well, it's not what I think about him. What I do, I think, is a better question. And the answer is, I'm a member of Parliament. Am I going to go running around a jungle eating kangaroo's testicles? Absolutely not. No is the answer. I wouldn't do it.
You don't think he should have done it, or you don't want to say that?
He's got to look into his own constituents.
Okay.
And that's, in fairness to Matt Hancock, his answer lies with the people who elect him. What I would say is, the question is, would I do it? The answer would have been no.
You wouldn't do it. And just one other thing on that, just because it's been newsy in terms of what the public's seen. Again, Boris Johnson on holiday when Parliament's sitting. Should MPs be allowed to take time off to go on holiday when you get quite long recess periods? I know MPs work in recess, but what do you think of that? Do you think that should be allowed?
What I would say is, Luke, in the end, I'm not going to get into personalities of individuals. And people work in different ways. And you say, we've had long recess. Well, most MPs are working through the recess.
I know.
And some didn't get holidays. We've had the tragedy of Her Majesty dying in the middle of it, the fact that the whole thing's changed. And if you've been a Prime Minister and other jobs as well, you are on a 24-hour, 7-day call.
So you sort of...
And I've got some sympathy to say, you know, he's been a Prime Minister, he's with his family, when would he see them? And in the end, you know, he's taken a decision that what he needs to do is his own health, his family, whatever. And I don't want to start picking on individuals. That wouldn't be right of me. Because in the end, we all come back to one thing. We have to face the people who elect us.
And I want to talk a bit about, if you're OK with this, about the people that elect MPs and kind of how Parliament has been in the past couple of years, because I would argue that it's not been a particularly edifying period. And I say that because we've had two Prime Ministers, Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak, both fined by the police for breaking those lockdown regulations. We've got MPs under investigation for lobbying. Today, Andrew Bridgen has been recommended for a suspension. Partygate, the Pincher affair. Do you accept that it's been a bad year for standards in public life? And does that concern you?
Of course it concerns me. Anything that tarnishes this house is not good for anybody. And it's about the behaviour. People look to politicians. They look for leadership. And, you know, I won't go into the details of individuals because I've not even read the report. What I would say is, We want a better Parliament. We want a nicer Parliament. We want a tolerance within Parliament. But also we need to respect each other. If we don't respect each other and we don't set the high standards that people expect of us, how do we expect that respect? And if we shout at each other, don't be shocked when other people shout back at you on the outside, because we should be the role models that people look to. Because in the end, we're elected to represent our constituents, and we should represent them with the highest standards, and that's what's important.
But it doesn't seem, I guess my point to you, Sir Lindsay, and I've been at this for 12 years, I've been in and around Westminster, and still we have reports. I mean, Sky News did a podcast recently called The Open Secret, and it uncovered abuse and bullying in Parliament, accounts of sexual harassment, including young staffers being forced to scrub carpets, screamed at, demeaned. It's been, you know, I remember Westminster, that was 5 years ago. It's almost like time ticks on and we're still having these conversations. Why? Why does it not improve? Well, are you powerless to improve it?
I think we've got to improve, absolutely right. And we have done things to ensure that people can come forward. What I would say is we have now the ability for people to be able to report without intimidation and to be assessed independently. And that's the one thing that we've ensured. There is a way forward for staff to be able to report something without having to go to the boss, because technically it was 650 bosses within MPs. So we have the independence now for people where they will feel that they're more empowered. And what I would do is encourage people. And maybe we see more of it because people now are reporting it, where previously they wouldn't have reported it. And it's about bringing us to a point. And I would say to anybody, look, we've got some serious allegations, please. We have the different routes. If it's serious, go straight to the police.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please report that. And we do support people within the House. And we want to make sure that they feel safe. I want this to be a workplace. And it's not easy, but I want this to be a workplace that's respected. We've been trying to ensure that people are treated fairly and making sure there is recognition and respect for everybody who works within this House. And that's what matters. If you're a pass holder here, we've got to respect it. And we've got to make sure that everybody's looked after. Not just about MPs, it's about MP staff and it's about staff of the House. They matter to me. Yeah. And it's about the independence of being able to report it.
And that is a new development, well, not, but a few years old. The ability...
The first thing I did was sign it off.
Yeah, exactly. You signed it off and now it is in place, but... You know, there was an MP that was accused and has just been found to have sexually harassed a member of staff. And that case went on for 17 months and the MP was still wandering around the Houses of Parliament. Now, in another organisation, if those sorts of allegations happen, the person is not just moving amongst people whilst investigations are underway. I mean, do you think that should change? I mean...
we want that both ways, don't we?
Well, I'm saying
if nobody's told about it, you can't exclude somebody.
Yeah, but that person was under investigation for...
But we don't know that. I'm not told of investigations.
Right, OK.
The one thing is that it was taken quite rightly. Rather than the Speaker being involved, it was an independent body that was set up to look into it and investigate. And it's hard for me to answer why it took 17 months. I don't know. What I would say is we need to make that... I want it shortening. I want quick answers to when people make complaints. We want quick investigations.
Would you like more powers to be able to do more? Would you? Because it seems to me that things aren't improving quickly enough.
I think we're moving at a pace. And I'm asking for a review. As you know, I've set up a review at the moment. I am looking and taking evidence from staff, and quite rightly, about should MPs employ staff or should they not? Is there a hybrid? Is there somewhere for them to turn? What is the best way forward? We're gathering that evidence in. And I want to make sure that we take that evidence, we look at it and we make decisions. And those decisions are so important, what we come out with. Those recommendations will be put to the floor of the House. Because part of that could be, should an MP be excluded? I haven't got the power to exclude somebody.
I was going
to that's the key to this investigation, that people will give their evidence, and part of that evidence can be looked at. So what I would say is that it will open up in different ways, that we will look at it, we will present it, and decisions will have to be made. Some of them will be tough decisions for the House to make, but it's quite right that we should give the House that chance to do something about this once and for all.
So, Lindsay, what if I come back and we have this conversation in 3 years, say mid-2025? Will it be better in terms of conduct in the House of Commons and the complaints procedures and sanctions? Will it be better? And if it isn't, would you have thought you have failed as the Speaker?
What I would say is, I'm going to do everything I can to support the people who work within this building. This is a village. We want a good village. We want a good place to work. I want people to make sure, not only do they feel safe here, but actually say to other people, that's a great place to work. You need to go and work in the House of Commons, whether that's a politician, whether it's staff, whether you work for an MP, whatever. It's about getting it right. What I would say is, I'm going to make sure that the voice of those people are heard. We're going to do a report into it, and I hope that the House would respect the evidence that we've been given and will take that decision on board. What I will say is, it's a major challenge. I'm not going to stop. And we've got to keep reviving, looking at it, changing it, altering it. Whatever we need to do, we've got to get in the right place. Yeah. And now we'll do whatever we can to get the House in the right place. And that's my key.
Because just to go on to what you were saying about whether MPs should be expelled, I mean, there is no way that an MP can be expelled at the moment.
No,
I mean, in other industries, if you have gross misconduct in any which way, you can be struck off from practising as a doctor or a lawyer or a financial services practitioner. But MPs, there are no... Do you think that's wrong? Because the public might think it's wrong. I wonder what you think.
Well, that's why I've set up the committee to look into this.
What do you think?
My view is that in a serious position, and that's why I've worked very closely with the whips, where a serious allegation made, they are not coming onto the estate. So I'm very clear on that, and I will continue to ensure that happens. And we have done everything we can. If you give us the power, it will be much easier. Without the power, I work very closely with the whips, and we have ensured that the people who are facing those serious allegations do not come on the estate. I think that's a very clear position from me, and I've been very effective in making sure that has happened.
And so, Lindsay, in terms of just one other thing on this, and then I'm going to move on. In terms of the Privileged Committee as well, misleading the House, allies of the former Prime Minister, Mr Johnson, think it's time to move on from the Privileged Committee investigation to whether he misled Parliament. But presumably for you, it's vital that a judgment is made on whether he did. Because from your point of view, sitting in that chair and Parliament being sovereign, is there a more serious parliamentary offence than misleading MPs?
That's why the House have asked for the investigation, and the Committee on Privilege are looking into it. And that's very clear. That's not my decision, that's a House decision. And I will always respect the House decision, and that's the decision they've taken. So what I would say is, that report is ongoing, and that report will be delivered. And not because I said it, it's because the House said it. But I'm a servant of the House, and I respect the decision of the House.
What I'm asking you more broadly is, again, about sanctions. At the moment, if an MP misleads the House, the sanction is being suspended. What I'm saying to you is, do you think that that is a big enough sanction? And this is not about that case, that's just in general.
But in general, each case is different, and it is at what level you get to. And what I would say is, you would judge each case on what has happened, you would take the evidence and you make an informed decision. And what we don't do is take it lightly. To mislead the House is very serious. It's whether it's deliberate or not.
Just another huge question for you as we return to Guy Fawkes and his scheme to try and blow up Parliament, is that the palace is at risk of burning down today. Just in terms of the renovations, you must be so worried about that happening on your watch, aren't you?
I'm always worried about anything happening in this building. And fire, of course, is one of our number one threats to this building. And that's why I've been trying to encourage and trying to work with everybody to say, what we need is a mist system right across the whole of the buildings, because that's the key to stopping fire spreading. Because what we have got, we've put all the fire systems in to save life. But of course, we have to save the building. So I've asked for a review on the implementation of putting this mist system in that can be isolated to where a fire may take place to stop the fire spreading. Those are the kind of things we need to do. I want us to get on with it. I want us to deliver. They've done it in the Congress.
Because they're fire wardens on 24-hour patrol. There's been 60 fires in the last decade. It could become the next Notre Dame. I mean,
Well, that's not quite
does
true
that not
because
scare you, though?
I think what we've got to watch, people throw Notre Dame and Windsor at me. What I would say is they were both empty, and that was when you had contractors on. So let's compare the two. What I would say is the reason we have fire wardens on is to check for fire. The fact is that when you've got construction on, you're more likely to lose a building. Hence, Notre Dame was not the building being in use, far from it. It was being renovated. The same with Windsor. And what I would say is that's why I want to get the mist system in now. So if you start doing the building works, you've got the fire
just quickly,
suppression
a
system.
mist system in now, but the later plan is for the Lords to vacate and the Commons to move to the Lords while the renovations take place in a vacated chamber. Is that your preferred solution?
I don't even know of this solution.
You don't?
No, absolutely not, because we've not even got to that. First of all, we don't know where the Lodge would go to. And the second thing is that we're still in the planning of what we need to do. So we're still waiting for the reports to come back. That's why I want to get on with this suppression system, using a mist system to protect this building. While people are talking, I'm getting on with doing the building works.
Just one thing, your legacy, what's the most important thing for you? Is it the conduct and improving conduct and this being a good place to work for people? Is it protecting the building? Are they of equal importance for your legacy?
They're all of equal importance. But what really bothers me is the staff of this building, the MPs, is looking after them, being a champion for all who come to this building. And of course, they're both top of my list.
Sir Lindsay, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Well, thank you to my special guest there, Sir Lindsay Hoyle. And if you scan this QR code on your screen right now, you can watch all of our interviews online and all of the previous episodes of the show if you so desire. Well, that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that we'll see you next week.